So, welcome everyone to the SameGoal Refresh. I can't believe it's August already and we're heading back to school. So, I just want to do a little refresher and SameGoal. Some of us, it was last year was our first year using it. So, we're 1 year under our belt. So, what do we need to look at for this coming year? And then we do have several schools that are joining us new this year. And I think most of them are represented. So you guys welcome, and this might be your same look at it going through the system. So I will give you guys time for questions. I'm going to kind of go through some of the things that you should prepare for this year, getting ready for the school year. In some of your districts, I will be in, working with all the ISs and the special service staff. So I might see you again at some point in time before the school year starts. So you should be seeing my screen. If you are not, somebody just let me know in the chat real quick if you're not seeing that. But um, with same goal going down, that's the first time that has happened to me. I have not seen that happen with same goal. We have had very few issues, problems with same goal, even when with their updates that they have done throughout the summer. So I'm going to show you a few of those things as we get going here in the system. So I am looking at a demo. So as you guys are seeing students and so forth, this is just demo information, demo kids. There's a lot of people in the system. So you'll see some of these kids, they have like every document assigned to them. So, this is not legitimate and how the process works, but there's things in here that I want to show and provide. Um, so we're going to kind of look through and uh, go through and see what you're going to be seeing for the coming school year. So um, when you guys get in for if the first time, it might be the first time for the year, or um, you're already ready to go. You are still going to see what you saw last year. So as you ended out the school year last year, you have your recent. Remember, that is your starting page when you log in. So you have your recent tab, and anything that you've looked at recently is going to populate chronologically. This doesn't wipe out. Those of you that are new into the system, so you guys are just coming into same goal, um, you won't have anything here. It's going to be completely blank, and that's okay because you haven't started opening documents. This just populates by opening documents, whether they are your students on your caseload or another student that you might be helping with or reading some information about. So again, it just populates. Your list is going to get longer and longer as the year goes on. But again, it is chronologically, and typically by the time you get through it, it is going to be most of the documents that are in your caseload. So before we talk about our caseload, I always seem to skip over that part, even with new user training. We're going to look at some of the other things that you're going to see populate that's going to be new for this school year. If you haven't seen this already, all of your students that have a completed document now have the special education badge or the little tag that says SE. And I know somebody on here was a 504 writer. So you're going to see 504s once one has been completed. Okay, so you're not going to see any of these badges until something has been completed. So my new users that are coming in, um, y- you might not see this on your kin, but you're like, well, I know he has an IEP. It just hasn't been completed yet in same goal. Once it's completed in same goal, then it will create the badge and it'll flag that student. Okay. Another thing that you might be seeing right now are these little, what do you call it, silhouettes of people. Um, so We do now have integration on, so integration should be running between the two. However, a lot of your school years have not started. So it flags everybody as pre-enrolled. So again, don't panic that you see and you're like, what happened to all my students? Why do they, why are they all pre-enrolled? As soon as the first day of school starts, those will disappear. So speaking of that, we want to talk about some of our student statuses because we just went through graduation and some of our students have graduated. So if we are looking at some students, okay, so when I'm looking in here, I'm not going to see those little flags. Okay, because those are students that are inactive. So, like for you guys, you will have those pre enrolled students. So, those are waiting to become active. You're going to see those listed here. In my new districts, um, you guys might not have your documents yet. I know Rebecca is working on that. I think Northwestern got some yesterday. I'm not sure the status of the other two because I was training earlier today and I didn't get an update. Okay. So just be aware of that for my districts that are just coming on this year. But when we have students, when we're looking in the system, so if I'm looking at a student in, see, and they graduated last year, but I need to get back to their document. Maybe I need some information off of it. Do not forget to check this include inactive. So that is going to show any of my transferred students. So this is also going to show my withdrawn students or my graduated students. So if I'm looking for somebody, if I just go to AC and then I do a search without that, I have 2 students. But once I click on my include inactive and hit search, oh, that was a bad example. Let's see. Let's see what comes up here. Okay, so now you can see all these extra students populated. So, and if you look here, it says historical or items. So those are people that are no longer active in the system. As soon as a student becomes inactive in student information, so they've graduated, they've withdrawn, they've dropped out, whatever it might be, overnight, that student will become inactive in SameGoal. So remember, SameGoal and student information talk every night, and it will populate that student and change their status from active to inactive, and it will mark it depending. Okay, so be aware of that. I have gotten some calls, can't find students, and that is an issue. A lot of times they are just inactive. Now, our other one are our deleted students. You shouldn't be deleting students unless you manually created one for some purpose, maybe testing purposes to, or show your staff something. But if you want to find deleted students, you would just hit deleted and hit search, and it will populate any students that have been deleted. So, and I know Corey's deleted himself before. Oh, they must have cleaned out all those. So there's no deleted students in here. So just be aware of that out there some with A's at the end. So you can see that they're deleted. So I do have the option, if I put a check mark, if they were accidentally deleted, I can undelete them. Again, you guys will not be adding students or deleting students. These students are going to be populated from student information. The only time a student is added is maybe if they are homeschooled. Okay, so, and of course, the special ed director at that district is going to add the students. As ISs, you're not going to add a student on your own. You would talk with your director, and they would get them added into the system for you. So just be aware of that as you are working. If you can't find a student, make sure you're using that include inactive. You can also pull out, I know somebody on here was 504, so if I just want to see my students on 504s, I can pull out the program 504, hit search, and it's just going to show those students. Okay, so that's one way to narrow down your student search as you're working. You are going to see the students based on what access you have. Now, here is here's some situations. We have kids moving between buildings now. So they might be moving from the elementary to the middle or middle to high. Um, as that is happening, depending on the user group that you have access to, you might not see those students. So be aware of that. Communicate with your special ed director. They will communicate with me and or fix it because they have access to the user groups. So that is the biggest thing is changing the buildings, and then IS is not having the correct access to see those students. So these badges also up here, and they're also indicators. So as I am looking at Zoe here, you can see that Zoe has some things that are past due. So you're going to see, and in the demo, I really don't have, oh, I do have a yellow one. So you have, of course, your red is a warning. So it's saying that, hey, these are past due. So it's giving you that warning flag, and it's showing you in the bubble what is past due. So I can click on this, click on more details, and I can see what has been past due. Okay, so it shows me each of the items and what it is. So if I click on it, now I have additional information that I can click even further on. So I have the consent, the initial eval, and you can see here, if I click on this, it's going to take me right into that document for that student in that area and say, okay, that prior written notice was from May 3rd, and it's going to highlight that day for you. Okay. So just be aware that that is there. Not everybody is using those, but they are available. Okay, so let's go back to our students. We have our red that shows that it's overdue. We have orange, which I don't see an orange in the demo, but then we also have our yellow. So that means that it is coming due. So the date is not here. Um, I want to say it's within 15 days, I believe. I'm not sure. That seems like it's more. And then orange, I want to say it's within 30 days. So, and again, these are clickable, so you can click on these at any time to get into that student. Okay. Um, so a few things as you're looking at documents, and this is more for our administration, but as students are moving over the summer and then they're transferring to another school, documents should transfer as well. So somebody at, whether it's the SPED director, whether there's a secretary or EMIS person, they might be transferring the documents. However, that does not mean that the documents disappear from the student. So if I am transferring Willis from one district to another, his documents will stay in my system now. And this also applies to our career centers. So what does that mean for the documents that I have? They are no longer updated. So when I transfer them to the new school, I transfer them to the career center. The career center now has the document that I transferred over, and they can make all the updates and changes that they need to make on it. And it does not affect yours. So yours is now just a historical document. Okay. So be aware of that. And typically, so if Willis, we transfer his documents, we make him inactive or, transferred in student information, overnight he will disappear. But that include inactive will allow me to redisplay him. Okay. So we looked at the students, we looked at our badges, and we looked at our little indicators in the badge to say if things are coming due or not. We also have something called deadlines. So last year when we started this, there was not much in here for you guys to see because all our documents were imported. So coming from imported documents, .pdfs, we were not, we couldn't get the information from them because they were PDFs. So now that we are in the system, more and more things are going to populate on the calendar. So you are going to see things that apply to you, Anybody that has admin access has the ability to see all students within the district. So this is important because I can look through my calendar month after month and see what is coming due. And then if I click on it, it's going to tell me, what it is, who it's assigned to, and so forth. Okay, so all that information is going to populate just by clicking on one of the calendar events. What I like to do is look at it in a list view. This reminds me a lot of Google Calendar, and I use Google Calendar to organize my children, kind of like this. You're organizing your documents. So I like looking at it in list view because here is when it's due, okay, who the student is, who it's assigned to, and what form it is. So you have all of that stuff listed right here in a nice list. Okay. What you can't do is it does not allow you to print this. I don't know why, and I did put in an enhancement request. It would be very nice to be able to print this. You can filter out deadlines as well. Okay, so if you're looking at something specific, you just want to see, and again, in the demo database, I'm not sure. So we can try and see. There's one. Okay, so I can pull out that information. So that is your little filter here, and you can see there's the indicator showing that there's been a filter applied. You can easily miss that, but that's why I'm pointing it out, that there's been a filter applied. So if you want to select all again and see everything, then you can bring it back. Okay. So moving on, let's look at our all. So this is going to be anything that you have access to see from default. We now have some new information here. So this applies to our all, and this also applies to our caseload. And we'll talk about the caseload for the beginning of the year here in a few minutes. But you now have this, I guess you would say a filter, a date filter. This allows you to say, okay, well, when do I want these documents? I want to get documents from March, let's pick March 1st through August 1st. And you can see it filters out those documents. So Jonathan here, I mean, he has a page of documents because he has everything. And some of your students that are, in high school, they might start having, multiple documents. But if I just want to pull things out, then I can do that by using these dates. I can pull out, so those of you that are 504s, you can just pull out your 504 plans. So that will pull out those students. And you can view incomplete or completed documents. So now that we have more in the system, these filters are going to start working for us, where in the past, our first year, and my new districts coming on, this year is going to be a challenge for you because some of these are not going to work, again, because your documents are going to come across as imported. Okay, so now that most of you have been in the system for a year, we can start using some of our filters. And some of you might have used them throughout the school year, discovering that they were there. I think this was added either right at the end of the school year or during the beginning of summer. So a few things. So if I have my students here, oh, I thought I cleared that out. I guess not. So if I'm working with my students here, so I have this IEP, it was from last year. I'm just going to complete this. I thought I did that. I am sorry. So I have that completed. So I'm looking at Jared. I'm ready to start my next document. Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple things. So this is one that I already have created. It's been complete. It only allows you to create one open document per student. Okay. So one open, I shouldn't say document, one IEP, one of a specific type of document. So it has to be completed. So before I create my new document, let's look here at my caseload. So Jared's my student. I've been working with him. I was working with his IEP last year and I completed it. So you can see here that it's been complete. Well, I'm done working with this document. So if I unstar this right now, watch what happens to Jared's name. So I have him here in my caseload. I have him listed here under my students, but that's the only document I've worked with him with. So once I unstar it, look what happens to my student list down here. So now, see if I can get this to refresh real quick. So now if I look at my caseload, he's gone from my caseload and I'm like, well, I didn't want him out of my caseload. I have to write his new IEP, but because there was not one document starred, it automatically removes them from your caseload and from your student list. So now in order to see Jared, I would either have to search for him. I can search for him and repopulate him. Okay. But nothing, he's not going to show up in my caseload until something is starred. So what I suggest is before unstarring his completed document that you're no longer going to work with, create your new one first. And then what happens when you create a new document? It automatically stars it. So if I want to create a new, okay, so depending on your district, if you are allowed to create from existing, and yes, I think I will always call it create from existing, I can copy to a new document. So I'm going to select his most current IEP, and then I'm going to go to actions and copy to new document. And again, if your district does not allow you to do it, you're not going to see this. Okay, so then you would have to create new and you would come to IEP wherever it is, somewhere. I keep passing it right here. Okay. So I'm going to create from existing. So I'm going to say action, copy, new. And you will see if you have not done this, it automatically gives you this message that says that it is going to copy the document over except for any of the dates, signatures, and certain fields that should not be copied over. Okay. And again, this is not used for your amendment process. Okay. This is creating the next IEP. And then I would copy the document. If it is a team, so you have an IS that works with math, you have an IS that works with reading, and you guys are not specific grade levels. If you want to share it with the same people, you can click on share and then copy the document. If the student has moved on a grade and doesn't need to be shared with the same people, leave it unchecked and then copy the document. Now you can see, again, it populates it chronologically. Okay, so this is chronological based on the student, but notice it has automatically started for me. So now Jared is part of my caseload. So here he is with the current IEP, and then he's part of my student list, so I can quickly navigate between them. So the beginning of the school year. So you're going to have students in your caseload that you worked with last year, and then you're going to want to get the new students that you're going to work with this year. So if you are working with a student, okay, so say Willie is one of my students and I am going to be working with him, I can search by name, first name or last name, or if I see the student list, I can just click on him. But if I'm going to be working with him, so I'm going to click on Willie and I am working with his IEP. I can star his IEP. Now Willie has become part of my student list as well as that document is in my caseload. Notice Willie's IEP is not in my recent because I have not opened it yet. So that will not populate until I officially open that document. Okay. So that is one way you can change your caseload from last year to this year. So some of your SPED directors might be starring and unstarring documents for you or sharing them with you. So if someone shares a document, I know I have a lot of related service providers on here. So if someone shares a document with you, it automatically becomes starred for you and it will show up in your caseload. So if you're like, well, I don't know how Isaac got there. Well, somebody probably starred it for you or shared it. So it starred it for you. Okay. So the other thing is when we are creating, so if we create from scratch, so I have a student, he doesn't have any documents yet. And again, you can see here is the document search. So as we're starting to go through and more documents are here for the student, any place where you can search for documents, you're going to have this date timeline that you can filter out. So if I create a new, so I'm going to come in here, find my IEP, and I'm going to create. As soon as I hit create, Harvey is going to become part of my caseload and he is part of my list. So why isn't he flagged special ed since I just created an IEP for him? You have to have the one officially completed first in order for them to get the special ed flag. Okay. Okay. A few things. Don't forget about your actually let's stop there. Any questions with kind of the beginning of the year caseloads? I do have one thing I want to discuss too. I did forget something. So when I am working with a student, okay, so I have this document, I created it, and then now there's going to be other people working on it. I can do as the owner of the document. So I am the owner. So as the owner of the document, I can come here and change ownership if I want to. Okay. But if I change ownership, if I look at my document list, oh, let's go here. I don't know if it's going to show me. Well, it usually shows who the owner is, but I guess it no longer shows that. So never mind. I'm not going to show that part of it. A lot of times it'll say who it was created by. Um, and then you would say, okay, it would be created by Shelley, but then somebody else is working on it. So, I've talked with a couple special ed directors and not sure the process of what you want to do. But if I worked with Isaac in 7th grade, and I created that IEP back in March and started typing information in. And then, he moves on to 8th grade, and now Rebecca's going to be working with him as 8th grade. Do I necessarily want to take Shelley's name off of the document since she's the one that created it? You can, and you can, as a special ed director, can change ownership, or the owner of the document can change ownership from one person to another. Or if we're just working on a document, I can come in here, leave the owner as is. So I'm going to leave, but all these other people are starting to work with them the next couple years. But when I'm working on this document, I have my version history. So I can see when it was created by who, when it was amended, any of those things. I can see all of that information on here. So that's going to be stored in here, whereas, listing on a student's document is going to be listed here. And let's see if we go in the individual student, if it lists the owner. Here it so it's on this screen. So you can see who the owner of these documents are. So Corey created the progress report and the ETR where I created the IEP. Okay, so again, that's your district decision. You can talk with your special ed director or the other ISs of how they're going to handle it. But if I get a new student in, I can search for them, star one of their documents, and then they are part of my caseload. Your stars are private to you. So any documents that you star, nobody else is going to see those stars. The only time a star will populate on its own is if somebody shared the document with you. Okay, so the question in the chat is when you create a document, it makes you the owner. And I've tried to make someone else the owner, like the IS, and it wouldn't allow me to do that. If you are the owner, it should allow you to change ownership. So let's see here. Okay, so I am the owner of this. If I come here, I can switch owner and make me, I can either remove myself and or make me just an editor or a viewer. But since I was the owner, so I changed, once I hit save, it should allow me to. So now looking at Alex's documents, it shows that Angela is the owner. If you are not the owner of a document, let me find somebody where Corey is. I think Jared. Oh, that's help desk. I have to go into Isaac. So, like for example, for the progress report here, if I click on share, I do not believe it will allow me to change from Corey to me. And let me confirm that. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And then if I come back in here, I can say Shelly is the owner and Corey is just an editor. Well, it did. I'm in the demo as an admin. So admin should be able to change. I know if the IS is the owner of the document, they can transfer ownership. But I thought you were able to change it on any of the documents. Okay, so here is the great question. Okay, so if you are trying to transfer the ownership to a person that cannot create that type of document, you cannot transfer ownership to them. Okay, so for example, we might only allow our school psychs and maybe, and of course, our SPED directors to create their full admins, never mind, bad example, but school psychs. So we allow them to create ETRs. We do not allow our ISs to create ETRs. So when the user group is made, the max role would be to edit because we might need an IS to go in there or a related service person to go into the ETR to make a few modifications, but we don't want them creating it. So I could never change the ownership of that ETR from the school psych to the intervention specialist because of how the role is set up. So if there's errors occurring when you're trying to transfer, even if it's a progress report, I was just working with someone the other day and they were trying to create a document and they're like, it won't let me create. It says there's one already existing, but the student doesn't have any documents listed. Well, that's because by default in the user group, I forget what document it was, whatever document it was set to none, which means by default, they can't see anything unless it's shared with them. So once I changed that default role to view, then they were able to see that document and knew that that document was created and then was able to go in and modify it without it being shared individually with them. So I've noticed more and more districts as the year went on, they were just allowing access to be able to view from default instead of having everything shared because sharing does take time, especially when you have, 10, 15 kids on a caseload and each of those kids has multiple documents. Good questions. Okay. So let's get into our fake document here. Don't forget about your banks. So if your districts have been making your banks, those are going to come up here. If you have your own banks, those should have carried over from last year. So if I want to add a goal, then I had banks already created. you will see that those are automatically going to populate from last year. And any of my topics, those are going to be in my drop down list still. So if I need a math goal, I can click on that and then I'm going to insert it. For those of you that have not worked on banks, when you are creating banks, if you put name within brackets, it will automatically populate the student's first name in the goal. And then I can use a pronoun as needed, and it will populate based on the gender of the student's profile page. Um, they have suggested to me, and I always pass on this tip, to use the male pronoun when you are creating your bank, even if it is a female student. It will automatically correct it for you, but the he's and his and him will automatically convert properly. But with she and her, it doesn't always transfer to the male form appropriately. So always use the male form for your pronouns when you're creating your banks, and then it will adjust accordingly for any females. Okay, I am going to open it up to questions here. And like I said, I know excuse me, I have some new people on here. I have admin on here, which we have an admin meeting the 1st of September. But I want to open it up to questions that you might have or that you're worried about for the beginning of the school year. So I want to give you guys time to ask things. And I don't want it. Some of you have been in the system for a whole year now. I don't know. I don't have to show you how to share a document and so forth. I just wanted to give you some quick reminders and some new things that you might see. So any questions for me? Okay, so I see things popping up in the chat. So can parents sign the IEP on their phone? Yes, they can sign on any mobile device where they can get email. So once it is emailed to them, they would click on the link, and actually on the phone, it's very simple because it is a touch device. Um, since it is a touch device, they can just sign with their fingers. Or, if they have a iPad or laptop, they can use that. So again, anywhere they can access the email, they can sign digitally. Why would a caseload be different from my student list? Okay, so you might have to clarify a little bit more, Jennifer. So, are you saying there's more students in your caseload and they're not populating in your student list? Or is it because, like Isaac, I have 3 documents starred, where Harvey, I only have 1. But Harvey's in my list, and I am not exactly sure if it's based on, there should always be the same name, but remember, it only shows so many students at a time. I don't know exactly how many it is. So look next to where it says my students, and you might have to scroll. So, and I can zoom in on that because it's probably small on your screen. You can, these will highlight if it's going on to the next screen. And again, I don't know how many populates at one time. Okay, so that's a great question. So if somebody's changing positions, can you transfer their whole caseload instead of one document at a time? So yes, kind of. So here is Isaac. So we'll use him as our example. So if I click on him, why didn't I zoom in for you guys earlier? I don't know why I didn't do that. So if I want to change ownership of multiple documents, so Shelly created this one and this one, and if there was something else, but I want to change ownership. If I come to this screen, so it's, instead of it being per document, it is going to be per student in this case. Then I can come here, share, transfer ownership. And then I can say, okay, well, I want this to go to Rebecca, search for Rebecca, and then I would hit save. and it's going to transfer those documents to Rebecca now. So again, open the student, have the student in context, check the multiple documents that you want to transfer the ownership, and then transfer owner. I don't know, and maybe one of my ISs on here, I don't know if ISs see the ability to transfer to another district or if just admins do, because in all my districts, I'm admin, so I always see this, but you can see the difference between the two. Transfer owner would be saying who the owner is, and then transfer to another, it would be if a kid is moving on to another school or the career center. So you can also say, okay, well, I know, I had the student last year, and I know Rebecca is going to be working with the student this year. So for let's go to my progress report. So I can check my multiples again, and I can say update collaborators. I can see who is working and the collaboration team. And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to add Rebecca to this, search for her. And I added the wrong person. Okay. So, and you can see how easy it is. I clicked on the wrong person, so I just switch it to remove. And then once I hit save, it will remove them and add Rebecca. So again, the easiest is from going into the student profile and seeing all the documents listed there, or I can go to all and find the student here. So if I want to search by date, or you can't search for a specific student here. This is just all the students that you have access to listed alphabetically. So, so that's why it's kind of hard to go from here, because it's like, okay, well, I can transfer these two things. And then, if I go to the next screen, oh, now I got to transfer this and transfer that. But then when I go back to the screen, you can see it unchecks. So you kind of have to do it student by student. Okay. Oh, that was the question I was just answering. So any other questions? And feel free to unmute too. We're not that big of a group.
Shelley, this is Chris Sykes from Northwestern. So my question right now is being able to access the transfer ETR IEPs.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, do I send that home district, information and they can just send it to me, or do I upload it into a new ETR? And
so no, so they can transfer it to you. So, and those will come across live to you. They will go to that student. So what you will do is look for the student that is coming into your district. So they actually have to be enrolled, and next to their name, it's going to have their student ID. So that is what the district that they're coming from, that is what they are going to need. So they're going to, they're going to say, okay, Bentley is going to Northwestern. They're going to hopefully contact you and say, okay, I need Bentley's student ID at Northwestern. You're going to give them this number, and you're going to give them the email address. Typically, it is either the SPED director or the secretary that gets the transfer documents versus going to the individual IS. But whoever the email address is that they put in, they become the owner of those documents. So if they transfer it to you, then you have the time, you get that. It will populate a star next to it, so you'll see them, and then you can look through it. And then if you want to transfer it to your IS, then at that point in time, you can share it here or change ownership to whoever the IS is. But the district that they are coming from will need that student ID in order for the transfer to be complete.
Okay, so on the ETR, it just pulls all that information in and it changes it to Northwestern as the district of service then? Because in the old system, you would get that paperwork and it would like make a new cover page because it would say that you adopted it without any changes.
You know what? I am not sure on that because, well, here you
Says
would,
add transfer, then it
right.
just has the date. So I assume that that's what it would do.
I am not sure because I haven't gone through an official transfer.
Mhm.
Um, I will have to ask one of the districts that has gone through it and ask them exactly if it changes the ownership
So
or
my
the
other
district of resident.
So my other question is, if I don't get this electronic transfer, which that's would be the easiest,
Correct.
am I able to open a new ETR, upload the scanned one that they sent me in the fax,
Uh-huh.
and then fill out this front page with the dates and the ETR adoption, and then just close out all the other blank pages, complete that?
Yes. So, yes. So if you're going to make modifications, so then, so, so you're saying like if it's coming from a district that doesn't have same goal and they're giving it to you like as a PDF, is that what
Yeah,
you're
see,
saying?
like right now, I already have paperwork for kids that are enrolling and they haven't been electronically transferred because I didn't know how to do that or ask for that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like one kid, I already opened his up, uploaded his ETR, fixed the
Yeah.
cover page, and now I'm trying to figure out, do I just complete it from there? And what does that EMIS form look like?
So you're
And
going to want to put right here, you're going to check the state reporting information only. So
mhm,
this allows you to not have to fill out everything. Because you've attached, and then you can say, original document, um, transferred from, such and such a school, original document attached, but you would
mhm,
give the reason here. And then when you try to complete it, it doesn't require as much information. You're basically creating the shell for it, but attaching the original document. Does that make
okay,
sense?
yes, mhm,
And we will, Chris, definitely with you and I think Jenna's on here from Liberty Prep. Um those of you that are new this year, we're going to have to go through that process of amending because amending gets messy too.
oh,
Um
yeah.
because of the way that the documents get imported. So this comes into play when we're working with our amendments. So we'll go through that whole process. Trust me, we figured it out, but we did it wrong with green. So they were kind of the guinea pigs, and we did it wrong a few times and then I got it correct. So
Yeah,
I
I heard
kind of
it.
know the process now.
Yeah, I heard it was a little icky.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Can you copy the ETR from the transfer? I think, Susan, I think that was kind of, I answer you with Chris's question as well. I mean, if you're getting if you're uploading, if you're attaching, so here, let me explain this too. So if you guys are, doing like a transfer ETR or something, you're going to want to create the ETR and you're going to attach it here. So what you're going to say, the transfer document from whatever school, you're going to name it here. You're going to attach that file here. If you have something else and it's not necessarily it's not an ETR, maybe it's just documentation, there is something when we look at our student, it is create an upload. And for my new districts, you're going to see a lot of uploads here pretty soon when all your documents get in there. My existing districts, you guys are probably throwing things at your screen right now because this is what was a pain last year because everything was an upload. But when I create a new upload, it's just blank and it just allows me to attach documents. Okay. But for like ETRs, IEPs that you're getting hard copies of, I would not suggest doing it as an upload. I would suggest doing it as the document and then attaching it. Okay, kind of like how I just showed Chris. Any other questions? Okay, well, I will stick around for a few more minutes if somebody wants to, if they're typing or, wants to unmute when it's a smaller group. But again, never hesitate to reach out if you guys have questions throughout the year. Let me know. I will, some of you guys, I already have refreshers scheduled for your district, so you might see me again. And I'll probably try to do these a couple times throughout the year. Just quick little um, tips and helpful things as you guys get started throughout the year. So if I don't see you before school starts, have a great school year.